Iman Rush Audio presents How to Be an Outstanding Wife by Muhammad Alshareef.
Safiya radiallahu ta'ala anha, she did something that angered the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam once. And so Safiya radiallahu ta'ala anha, she wanted very much that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam would be happy with her. So she went to Aisha radiallahu anha and she said to her, Ya Aisha, she said, Hal laki, she said, I'll make a deal with you. She said, if you make the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam pleased with me, that I'll give my day to you. I'll give, because the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam would spend one day with this wife, one day with that wife, and go. She said, if you make the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam happy with me, then I'll give my day to you. And Aisha radiallahu anha accepted. And so Aisha radiallahu anha, she went to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam and she put on her khimar, which is a very pretty khimar, and she put za'faran, which is the equivalent of perfume in these days. She put za'faran on her hijab or her khimar, and then she wet it with water and she brushed water over it so that the smell would come out. And so she sprayed this water on her khimar so that the smell would come out more. And she came to the Prophet ﷺ on that night, and she came and she sat near him and started getting close to him. And the Prophet ﷺ said to her, Ya Aisha ilayki anni, that he said, Aisha, stay away from me, for it's not your night tonight. It's not your night tonight. And actually, inshallah, as we'll be learning later, this is one of the techniques that Aisha radiallahu anha, and this method of coming close to her husband, dressing up nicely, putting on the perfume and coming, was some intimate thing that a wife does to her husband. And when the Prophet ﷺ saw this, he told her, it's not your night, Aisha. So, stay away from me because it's not your night. And then Aisha radiallahu anha told him what had happened between her and Safiya, and the Prophet ﷺ became pleased with Safiya and became pleased with Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anhun. And another example, and the examples go on and on, of Asma bint Abi Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anha, the daughter of Abu Bakr radiallahu anha, Asma. And if you read the seerah of Asma radiallahu anha, and subhanallah, here we just mentioned the story of Aisha, and now we're mentioning the story of her sister Asma radiallahu anha. And Asma was married to Az-Zubayr radiallahu anhu. And Az-Zubayr was very poor when he was first married, and Asma radiallahu anha used to take care of his home and used to take care of his help him in his business or in his land. And she would say that, and it would hurt her so much, and she suffered so much in assisting her husband. And she mentions this story that she had gone out to this land that the Prophet ﷺ had given to Az-Zubayr radiallahu anhu, and she used to work in this field, and she would do the farming on that field, and she would collect the seeds and then bring it back, and she would say that she would travel very long distances to get to this area to do the farming, and then come back with some food, come back with wheat, or come back with seeds, so that she would carry it. And she would carry it on her head, radiallahu anha. And she described that he, radiallahu anhu, her husband, Az-Zubayr, that he only had a camel that was used to carry these things, to carry farming items on it, and then he would have a horse. And they had nothing more than that. And Asma radiallahu anha, she says in this incident where she was walking back, and it very much hurt her to walk like this, the Prophet ﷺ came by, وَمَعَهُ نَفَرٌ مِّنَ الْأَنصَارِ, and that there was a group of men with the Prophet ﷺ from the Ansar. They came, and then they saw Asma radiallahu anha, and then they stopped. The Prophet ﷺ told everybody to stop, and he offered to take Asma radiallahu anha with him on the camels, and they would ride back into Al-Madinah. And Asma radiallahu anha, she said, فَذَكَرْتُ غِيرَةَ الزُّبَيْرِ, she said, I remembered the jealousy of Az-Zubayr radiallahu anhu, and the shyness, she had shyness that she would ride with the men. Two things, that she was shy to ride with the men, and she remembered the ghira of her husband Az-Zubayr, the jealousy, the good jealousy of Az-Zubayr radiallahu anhu. And so the Prophet ﷺ understood her shyness, and then he told the men to move on, and they moved on until she came back to Zubayr radiallahu anhu, and she told him what had happened. And Zubayr radiallahu anhu, and you'll see here that she understood the she understood her husband, and she understood those things that pleased him and those things that would displease him. And so Az-Zubayr radiallahu anhu, he said to her that, he said, Wallahi, the fact that you had to carry those seeds, to carry that nawa on your head, hurt me more than you having to ride with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That it hurt me more, the fact that you had to do that work. But you'll see here that she was not complaining, and she was not saying anything about what was going on, but she remembered her husband in the situation, and she protected her husband. Until Asma radiallahu anha, she said that the Prophet, until Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, her father, later sent her a servant, and she says, فَكَأَنَّمَا أَعْتَقَنِي. It was as if he had freed me, as if I was a slave, and it was as if he had freed me when he sent me the servant, because of how hard she used to work in the home and in helping her husband, Az-Zubayr. Okay, inshallah, this lecture tonight is based on, and all the words pretty much are based on a tape by Ibrahim al-Duwaysh, Hafidhahullah, entitled As-Sihr al-Halal, which is called Halal Magic. Ibrahim al-Duwaysh, Sheikh Ibrahim al-Duwaysh, is a teacher in one of the colleges in Qasim, where Sheikh al-Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, used to live. And Ibrahim al-Duwaysh, his lectures are very well known around the world. He says here in this lecture, and before this lecture, we gave another speech that was also based on his tape, which was about the art of dealing with the wives, فَنَّ تَعَامَلْ مَعَ الزَّوْجَةِ, and we entitled it, How to be a Good Muslim Husband. And inshallah it'll be available here, because some of the sisters may hear this lecture and they'll say, well, what about the husband? What about the husband? Alhamdulillah, we already did a lecture like this for the husband. And so we started with that, and the lecture is available. So inshallah, when your husband gives you this tape, you go and you buy that other tape and you give it to him, and everybody goes to their room and listens to the tape on their own, inshallah. So that we didn't want to mix, because I know sometimes when a husband and wife, they say, let's solve our problems, let's listen to this tape. So everybody looks in the tape for that thing which is for them, and not the thing that's against them. The sheikh will say everything, this is against her, this is against her, this, until there's something against the husband, and she says, see, did you hear what the sheikh said? And bring it on. And of course, the man does the same thing. He listens until the parts come against the wife, and then he said, see, did you hear? But we don't want it. We don't want that to happen. And subhanallah, that nasiha, they say that giving advice is very hard, especially to the people that give advice. That the hardest person to give advice is the person that continues to go around and give advice to this person, but when he hears the advice, it may be very hard for that person to accept it. And this is the nature of the human being, that when advice is given, that they cringe and they find a rejection to that. And so from the hikmah that we see in the shara, and we see that when someone gives advice, that they should try their best to find a way out, find the best application, the best way to offer that advice, so that that person can accept the advice. The issue isn't that we want to bash someone on the head with the advice, get out some anger and then leave, but rather we want to apply that advice, put like a sugar coating around it, so that it's easy for the person to swallow, inshaAllah ta'ala. And this dealing for the women, because this lecture is for the women, that to deal with a husband is an art. Just like we said in the other lecture about it being an art, the man dealing with his wife, the woman also, it's an art, and we don't hear it very often of the details of this art. For the woman, even if she was a angel in her character and so on, it's not enough until that character goes beyond herself and starts applying to her husband. For very often you may hear that a sister would be good in her work, good with her sister friends, good with everybody else, until it comes to her husband, and then everything changes. Because the art of dealing with the husband is a little different, and it's something that we forget, or we haven't really learned it properly. And in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the prophets, and He says that this nush, this advice, is something when it's accepted, it's a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that when the advice isn't accepted, Allah hasn't given the person the favor and the tawfiq of him accepting this advice. And this advice goes in everything from the top of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah to all the furu' of the deen. The prophets would say, as mentioned in the Quran, قوله سبحانه وتعالى ولا ينفعكم نصحي إن أردت أن أنصح لكم إن كان الله يريد